You don't know what's out there.
That's why I would go.
Hi, and welcome back to Wild Dream, where we give you the freshest takes on the latest movies. My name is David.
And my name is Daniel.
And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Is that why they say Happy Holidays, so you don't have to do all of those?
Exactly. It's all encompassing.
What about New Year?
Happy holidays to everybody.
Happy Holidays and Happy New Year.
Here's the facts. Because of the movie we went to go see today, we saw this and we are recording this on Christmas Day,
which is also the first day of Hanukkah.
Also the first day of Hanukkah. I was going to say the same thing. Happy holidays to everyone. And
this is coming out
right
for you on New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. Woo!
So it is not only our holiday special, it's also the last episode of the year.
Oh my gosh, how this year flew by.
And boy, are my arms tired.
And boy, are my arms tired. Thank you guys so much for another successful, in our hearts, year of Wild Dream. We appreciate you guys for listening yet again for another year. I cannot believe it's already been nearly 3 years of this. It's insane. It's insanity.
Yes, going on 3 years. And boy, have the times changed.
And boy, are my arms tired. I'm just going to keep spamming that.
But no, we're very happy to be doing an episode today. We thought that we would only be able to do it today. And then we were like, oh, well, maybe not. And then it was like, no, actually we do. Because what we just went to go see was Nosferatu 2024.
And I'd like to say, before we say anything else, Nosferatu. Thank you. No, guys, seriously. Stop. Okay. You're embarrassing me.
I'm playing the full sound, the full video.
Come on. Hey, no, you. No, not me, you. Seriously. I mean, come on. Who else is going to say think of this stuff? God. I mean, it really means a lot to me.
That's what you guys come here for, right?
Nosferatu. This has gotten a pretty decent amount of marketing. Is that just me?
No, I don't think it's just you. Okay. Most people I talk to know that this movie was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
They know who it was by.
Yeah.
But no one is going to see it.
Really?
They're all like, yeah, but isn't it only on Christmas? And I'm like, well, not just on Christmas. They release more days. And people are like,
yeah.
Okay. I'll probably, maybe. When is it on streaming? And I'll go, I don't know, probably never. They're like, oh, okay, well then, yeah, who cares?
Man, movies are dying.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like that's been the thing. Like no one's like, oh, I gotta see that.
Well, we woke up early.
Too fucking early for Christmas Day. Now I know a lot of you guys out there, especially those of you who have younger people in your lives, whether they're your children, your friends' children, your nieces, your nephews, your brothers, sisters, whatever.
Keep going.
Where your aunts, your uncles, potentially, you know, if you have a modern family situation where your grandfather got divorced and then married a younger woman, then had a child with him in their late stages of life, and your nephew or uncle is younger than you. If you're in a modern family, you might have woken up early today too. I know we're like, waking up early on Christmas. It's like, yeah, most people wake up early on Christmas.
Not me. That's what I grew up for.
That's not for the same reason.
This is the privilege of being older.
Now, I will say, I don't know if we've talked about this on the pod before, but when we were younger, I was the one who got everyone up for Christmas Day because I was the youngest, the most excited for presents. And it was always, I got up and I wanted to open presents. And my mom was like, you better go wake up your siblings. And I'm like, okay. And I would start with Dan because that one was easy. And then I would fear for my life waking up our sister. To her credit, I mean, she was working at a young age and 2 jobs at a young age. So Christmas Day, if she had it off, was not a day you wanted to go wake her up early. But when we were little, I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Well, today we made an effort. We woke up early and we drove to a theater about 40 minutes away because it was the only one with
tickets available, seats available.
So your friends might not be seeing it, but everybody else is.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say the name of the city that we went to, but boy, was that the most Texas-looking fucking town that I've seen in Colorado so far.
Same.
My God, that place, it was just nothing.
Nothing.
Just nothing out there. And the AMC is barely there. It's like facing a warehouse.
Yeah, it's really odd. It's in the middle of nowhere, and then the seats are fucking old.
The old seats, dude. I have not had to sit in a theater with folding seats.
Straight up.
You guys know the seats in theaters that fold up when you stand up? They like automatically fold up. That were made for people half our size.
Yeah.
Yeah, those fucking seats, man. We haven't had to sit there since we were going to Regal.
I was going to say, if I would have known that they had bullshit seats, I would just would have bought a ticket for a closer theater. That wasn't AMC. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, yeah, paid for a theater. Yeah. If I had known, well, this was a really BFE theater, man. This was out in the middle of nowhere, and it was old, man. It was old. It looked like an old theater.
Well, perfectly apt for this movie because it's a very old-timey movie. I mean, it's a remake of a movie from 1922. So,
yeah.
Now,
just jumping into this,
jump in.
How much did you know about? How much did you know about Nosferatu prior to going to go see this?
Nosferatu. I knew. Here's what I'll tell you. I knew it was from a movie from the 20s, and I knew what Nosferatu looked like because I've seen the end of the hash-slinging slasher episode of SpongeBob SquarePants.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say what I knew about Nosferatu was he was a pesky little brat who turns the lights on and off in the hash-slinging slasher, which is part of the reason why I thought his name was Nosferatu, which it's not. It's Count Orlok. Which when they said that in the movie, I was like, "Oh yeah, that is his name." I remember that from something. I know that was the case, but I totally forgot. Over time, and I was like, "Oh, his name is Nosferatu," because SpongeBob says Nosferatu at the end of the hash slinging slasher episode. So that's how much our generation knows about Nosferatu. Nosferatu, right?
Play the clip.
And I know that it's a vampire movie, and I was excited for this one, but that's about it. So I went into this movie tired. So I just want that on the record before we get into this review. Yeah. I was very tired.
Can I say I
stayed up late, woke up early.
Yeah, well, I mean we've been doing a lot this holiday break. I want to say the text that I sent to Dave this morning. This morning I said my first alarm just went off, and my desire to see this movie is plummeting. Yeah, because that's really how I felt. As soon as I woke up, I was like, "Oh my God, is it?" I don't even know if I like movies. Just let me sleep.
Right. Christmas Day.
I was tired too.
It's early, but whatever. Let's get up. Let's go watch this thing. I was excited about it. Going into it. So, and also, this was, we talked about this on the last episode. This is one of Daniel's most anticipated movies of the year, along with Y2K and everything, or not, I'm not going to say everything. It's been a long week, guys. Damn. My wife has not been home, and I'm tired.
His wife.
I want to preface that because I feel like we're going to say some negative things about this movie. And does this movie fully deserve...
Wild Dreams going to say something negative about a movie?
I just don't know if this movie deserves some of the negative criticism. Some of it does. Some of it is very valid. Yeah. Some of it, though, where I'm going to say I was bored during this movie, I was falling asleep during this movie, those are true. All right, is it purely this movie's fault? Probably not. There's probably some...
External factors.
Some external factors that go into me having fallen asleep. Now, when we went to go see... Because the last movie I remember, I literally could not stay awake during was
The Zone of Interest.
Zone of Interest. See, I couldn't even remember because I was asleep the whole goddamn time. That movie was legitimately boring, and I literally just was falling asleep because of the movie. This time, I don't think it's the movie's fault that I was falling asleep. I think it was half and half.
Yeah.
Half and half. But there were moments of this movie that I couldn't fall asleep during because they were so interesting. So I was like, well, then what happened to the other parts? But all in all, this movie, it's an old-timey movie. It's based off of an old-timey movie, and old-timey stuff is inherently boring.
Yes, it is. Quite where if got thou'st and thou and that and halt and Nicholas Hoult. In fact, he's in this movie. Yeah, they don't play it as I almost expected it to be even more egregiously historically accurate because it's Robert Eggers. So at least they didn't go too far and to the point where I was like, what does that sentence mean? You know, like Spake shear. It's been a long week. My wife hasn't been home. For 30 years.
But no, you get what I get what you're saying. I thought so too, especially because of the trailers too. But I felt like they were going to be like, I kind of like the idea of doing a very historically accurate movie with this modern technology, modern cinematic like cinematic features, right? Modern cinematography, modern music, modern, all these things that can elevate a movie to make it like really cinematic, but then doing something older. I think Oppenheimer is a good example of that, right? Oppenheimer is a period piece and it's a very historically accurate period piece of, the 1940s, but it's, elevated through those things. It's elevated through the filmmaking. So this movie did some of that at times and sometimes it didn't.
Yeah, I think let's see. Let's spoiler free this. Let's spoiler free this motherfucker, man. I did like the setting and the world building a lot because it reminded me a little weirdly a little bit of Harry Potter, where it feels real even though there's no way it can be, kind of, because it really does feel like legitimately old timey and but also like this really murky, hazy blue gothic, like it's so awesome. I mean, they did fantastic with it.
Which is interesting because I made fun of The Invitation for this, but I liked it in this movie. The blue, everything is blue.
Yeah, it kind of switches here and there, especially with interior shots where it's a little bit more like actual like orange, and it's because it's a lot of firelight. So it seems a little bit more red and orange, but when it's outside, I mean, it's blue and gray and murky, and it's really cool.
I will say one of the things I said during The Invitation though was that what I needed was justified lighting, which is important. So in this movie, when everything is blue and you're like, where's this light coming from? They then show a window with the moon outside. Yeah. And they go, okay, this is where the light is coming from. That's why everything is blue. It's not fully justifiable because the moon doesn't make things blue, but
I'm blue. I
think Halloween, the original Halloween, is a movie that has some of my best examples of moonlight lighting that isn't blue. Anyways.
But yeah, I really like the setting a lot. I like the all of the performances were good. The only one I didn't vibe with that much, honestly, was Aaron Taylor Johnson's performance. But it just felt like he was acting in a different movie. But it might have just been his character supposed to be that way. I don't know. So it was just the only one that stuck out for me, where I was like, every time he speaks, it feels weird. But other than that, yeah, I vibed with every single performance. I thought that a lot of the presentation was really, really cool. There were a couple of shots that I thought were really ambitious and this is an interesting way to introduce this scene and like fill the space all of a sudden. And so some of that was really cool. But the biggest issue with me for the movie is I just don't care about this story at all. And I didn't care about how they chose to structure the story, which we can get more detailed in spoiler talk. I will also say that I found the design of the titular sort of character. I found it to be actually kind of funny.
Oh my God, I was going to say the same thing.
It was kind of like comedic.
It was.
And so it wasn't scary. And so this movie wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. It didn't really hit any emotional level for me. Again, I just did not connect with this story. It is. Well, when we get into the rundown, we've always had the rundown segment.
Actually go back and you know what? Fact check us on that. Go back and listen to every episode of this show and tell us if we've ever not done the rundown.
So when we get to the rundown, I mean, this is a very simple, basic premise is just one that I did not really connect with. And maybe there's some stuff that other viewers can connect more with that might have a better perspective than I can. So I'm excited to hear what other people think. But
the other thing is I was going to give my perspective on that too, because I think that it is important to to explain that the primary like emotional connection to this movie is about is how much do you love your wife? How much do you love your husband? Like that is so much of this movie. And so I was like, okay, well, yeah, Dan said, he's not able to connect with it as much. And, he doesn't like care about the story. And as someone who is married, I felt the same way. I actually felt, I was like, they didn't do enough to make me care about this couple. They didn't do enough to make me care about their love for each other than tell me they're married and they love each other. Mm. They spend like 2 minutes with each other before we're separating them for the rest of the movie, for the next, hour and a half.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't care. Like they just didn't do enough to make me really care about the stakes of this, because the stakes of this movie is one of these two people dying and losing the other, it's like, that's the stakes. And they didn't do enough to build enough time to make me really care. There was only 2 characters who I cared about in this movie because of a few things that they did to make me care. And then that was like the most like emotional I was connected to. Mm-hmm. And, I thought that it was done well, but like, and we'll get to that in spoiler talk. But other than that, I didn't really connect with the main characters.
Yeah.
Which is, it's hard. Like I really enjoyed Willem Dafoe's character. I think he did a good job. I enjoyed, arguably my favorite part of the movie was the servant / boss in the movie, which we'll get to in spoiler talk. Because he had the most like outgoing performance, the most eccentric performance, and the most like, pushing outside of this world of this like just old timey thing, like someone who actually just looks and feels insane, and everything in the movie looks and feels clean and neat and proper and posh, and then this guy looks psychotic and he's crazy and he brings some chaos to the movie.
This little rat man.
And I loved that. I thought his character brought so much to the movie to make it exciting. He made the movie exciting.
He was great. He gave me what Longlegs promised.
Honestly,
I thought that like in the I guess cell scene or whatever that we can talk about in spoiler talk. Like when it got to that scene, I was like, this is what I was missing from Longlegs. Like this is fantastic. Like obviously his performance, but the actual insanity of the character being felt and portrayed like to a good point to where I actually believe it. And I'm actually a little fearful, and I'm actually like, oh, I don't want to be near this person. So yeah, I agree. I love that performance from that actor. I think too the horror aspects of this movie, some of them were really good.
Yeah.
And then some of them were really cheap and lame and like Smile 2-esque. It was literally jump cut to a random screaming person. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And just like Smile 2, a lot of dream sequences. Lot.
That's the thing is that
I know it's a central theme. It's like
the whole point.
It's like saying that Freddy Krueger has a lot of dream sequences, but
right.
but I don't care. It's just again. I think it's going to come down to the structure of how do you show the dream sequence. Do you have to show them waking up every time?
That's what I was going to say is that the problem isn't that because it's not dream sequences. Everything that they dream about is actually happening. Mm-hmm.
It's like premonitions more so.
And they show that, they show like even, they have one scene where, the character wakes up and he dreamt that he quote unquote dreamt that he was like walking and following these people in the woods. And then he wakes up and he has mud all over his boots. So we know like, okay, this actually happened. Mm. It's just at some point he was put in a trance. He was sent back to where he was from, where he was supposed to be and wakes up, whatever. So all the dream sequences were real. They actually did happen. But I think you're right. Why do we have to then cut to them waking up? It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I get it. Every time someone gets into an issue with the villain of the movie, they get put in a trance and get put back into their bed where they were before they got up and did all that shit. So they weren't actually dreaming and this actually happened. And he can just do that and put you back to where you belong and whatever.
It takes away from the movie, in my opinion.
Then they just wake up and I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter that they got put back into their bed. I don't care.
Yeah, me either.
Doesn't matter.
If you just treat it as truly real and or surreal, like whatever, it would just have a way better impact, in my opinion. I don't know why we have to always cut to the character waking up. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest flaws, I think, of the movie is, and I think that when you talk about the structure, and also, I mean, it doesn't just affect the structure, it also affects the pacing. Because we, like one of my biggest issues with this movie that bothered me so much. Like, listen, I think the music and the sound design were really good. Okay. Meaning I thought the music was good. And I thought the sounds that they used to create tension and horror and all these things were good. Right. And even the way they incorporate it into the music. The structure of the music drove me fucking insane. I think I counted 280 goddamn times that they crescendoed and then cut the music.
Yeah.
Dude, they did this over and over and over and over and over. You see how annoying this is getting?
Yeah.
Like
this movie has a lot of repeat offenses.
It does this so many times that I'm like, stop crescendoing to go into a cut of nothing. Because you're actually ruining the potential of a buildup of something exciting. Like, I feel like you should, if you're going to do that, you can only do that once or twice in a movie. Once or twice. It's maximum. And if you do it once or twice, maybe we'll let it go. Maybe we'll let, whatever. But when you do that, you're just like, you're like fucking teasing us, for lack of a better word. Like, you're like building something up, like something's about to happen. And again, when I talk about how many sections of this movie were so boring, you know what was so boring? Everything that happened after a crescendo. Yeah. Everything that happens after a crescendo is horrifically boring. We cut to something else that we don't care about, and where it just gets boring again. And I'm like falling asleep again. I'm like, you just promised me some excitement. You just promised me something to look forward to. There was a scene in this movie, and again, I can talk more about it in spoiler talk, but there was a scene in this movie where I shit you not, guys, they crescendo and cut the music 4 times in a row on one scene. It's not one scene that cuts to another scene like they do for the rest of the movie. Every time they do it for the rest of the movie, they cut to another scene of someone else doing something else. By the way, the thing that person is doing is waking up every single time. But they just bothered me so much because they did this 4 times in one scene. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is a travel sequence. It was a travel sequence. Like, could you imagine if you were watching, like you guys know, like in rom-coms or like shitty, buddy cop movies or whatever, where there's a scene, it's like overhead shots of just fucking Chicago and they're just like driving through the city and just shows them like traveling. Oh, because I had to move from.
I'm walking on sunshine.
Whoa. Yeah. And then eventually just cuts to and the sound of the music becomes what they were listening to on the radio in the car, like that kind of thing. Imagine that level of a travel sequence with 4 crescendos that cut to the music dropping entirely every time the shot changes. Every time the shot changes from a helicopter shot to on the street shot to then the front of the car and then to the back of the car and them getting out. All 4 of those. Imagine a crescendo all the way up and then drop the music entirely before the shot changes. What's the purpose of that?
I don't know, and it shocks me because I remember one single crescendo from The Witch, and it was as they kind of after they get banished and they're saying their prayer and it slowly pushes in on the forest that looks, fucking vast and empty, like just this vast, empty, don't go beyond this point, scary fucking scene. And I thought it was like, oh, that's perfect. And then when you have a massive like scene in that movie where Black Phillip speaks for the first time, all you can hear in that scene is crackling of fire. Right. No music, it's like, so he has shown that he's very good at subtlety. But this movie was the exact opposite of everything I've come to expect from this director.
Well, that's the thing too, is that when we have this travel sequence,
studio heavy,
like that scene specifically was a perfect opportunity for this over dramatic audio. Like and when it first started, I really enjoyed it because like what I was saying was like thinking in my head, so I was like, this is too loud. Like, and like in a good way, like it was like got so loud, it was uncomfortably loud. And it wasn't just music. It was music along with this like screeching noise and like nails on chalkboard type of noises that were just incorporated into it. It just sounded like so horrific, like just the worst sounds ever all put together as it like shows you this horrible, like, haunting, daunting, scary ether that's like it's like crossing this threshold, right? It's this character going, beyond the point of no return type of thing. And it's a perfect opportunity for something like this to be heard during this scene. Like exactly what you're saying, like into the unknown for, this family in The Witch. It was very similar to that. It was into the unknown, into the, the point of no return. And they just drop the music and everything entirely. And then they do that 4 more times.
Yeah.
To the point to where I'm like, this buildup doesn't have the same effect anymore. It did when you first started. When you first did it, it had this effect on me where I was like, oh, like we're really getting into a scary, horrifying section of this movie. Mm-hmm. And then they just turned their back on it. And it was so frustrating.
Yeah. Wasting stuff like that on a shot of a guy walking through a corridor to a different angle of him walking through the same corridor. I mean, it's like, what are we doing here? So yeah, I totally agree. I did find this one. I also found the pacing really rough, but at the same time, I'm trying to account that I was tired, and so hopefully that's part of it. But I don't know. In my head, I can't say like definitively either way. In my head, it was paced really slow.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I want to give the movie another shot. I want to take Taylor to it and, see, because she loves vampire movies, so
I do want her to see this one. Yeah.
I want her to see this one, and she loves period pieces too. So this is like right up her alley.
Yeah. This like gothic horror. I was thinking of her. Like I was like, as soon as we saw the trailer, the very first time we ever saw the trailer for this, I was like, dude, there's no way Taylor wouldn't want to see that.
Right.
It's like right up her alley.
And so I do want to give it another shot for that. But yeah, I mean, I'm only talking about my gripes. Spoiler free talk. The thing, again, I agree with what you said. All the performances are good. Some performances are really, really good. Mm-hmm. I actually think that a lot of the horror elements that they did worked well when they were subtle, like the subtle horror elements, like the creeping in the shadows and the, and even, the shots that they did of like, his hand in the shadows that he casts and stuff like that, I thought were really good. Cause like the opening sequence has a really good, like showing him as not a physical presence, but like a spiritual presence, like that, the way that they did that and how they incorporated that into like the horror and scary parts of the movie I thought were done really well. Yeah. I think his design wasn't great. Nosferatu's design, we'll get more into that in spoiler talk, because I think that is something that people are waiting to watch the movie to know what he looks like.
Yeah. Cause this had, Gabby was telling me that this had a little bit of like a long legs press where like Bill Skarsgård, who plays Count Orlok, was saying that he was so scared of his like makeup and his, whatever. He was so terrified that he hated even seeing himself in the mirror, and he never wants to play this dark of a character ever again. Something like that. And they were like really, starting to put that quote on promotional stuff. And so she was telling me, she was like, this better not be another long leg situation. But because she told me that, I actually lowered my expectations. I was like, oh, here goes that bullshit again. Yeah. So thankfully I wasn't so off put by how lackluster it was that I was, out of it.
I didn't even know about that. I'm glad I didn't though.
Right. So I immediately was like, oh, okay, it's not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, it actually did the opposite of what it's trying to do. So it lowered my expectations. I do think what's
crazy though is I kind of think the original Nosferatu was scarier.
I do too.
Maybe it's the graininess of it, and like the, especially if imagine it at that time though, where no one's ever seen someone make a monster like that.
I know.
That would be fucking terrible.
And he's also like, this one is very shrouded by just lack of light, whereas the original one has
psychotic,
has that like actual collar pulled up to where he's hiding his face, and the over exaggerated teeth of the first one used to scare the shit out of me too. And it's a little bit more uncanny valley than this design as well. So I do think the old one is a little scarier in my opinion. But
I almost wish they would have stuck with something more traditional like that, but
same.
Anyways, I think it is time to go ahead and get into some spoiler talk so we can get into some more detail.
Let's do a spoiler shit out
so
of
you guys
this movie,
don't think we're not just bitching about nothing.
Yeah, we're not just straight haters. We have reasonings, we have thoughts, we have feelings, actually.
What was that?
Jesus Christ, excuse me. Everyone dies.
What the? Spoiler alert. All right, so let's jump into the rundown. That sounded more like Drake and Josh. So this movie is about Ellen, who is a woman with a terrible hairline, and
damn, this fool ripping off the start.
Could not stop thinking about it the whole movie, that her hairline is in the middle of her head. It was driving me crazy. I was like, there's no way her forehead is that big. They just chose to make her hairline that far back, right? I don't know. Anyways, it looks bad to me. She promises herself to a vampire. We don't really know why. She's just like crying in the beginning of the movie and saying, please, someone help me or whatever.
She's lonely.
And then she ends up getting married. And when the vampire finds out that she got married, he's like, you can't do that because you promised yourself to me.
You promised.
You pinky swore.
You pinky swore, bitch.
So he devises a plan to get him to come to his house. And when he does, the husband, who's played by
Nicholas Hoult,
whose name is Thomas, when Thomas goes to Count Orlok, that's what I said, Orlok's home,
Count Olaf,
he tricks him into signing a document where he promises his wife back to Count Orlok. Then Count Orlok comes back to the town where they're living, and he's like, listen, he already signed the papers, so you kind of belong to me, but you have to also agree, and it has to be your choice. And she's like, I really don't want to. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to bring the plague to this whole town, and everyone's going to start dying. I'm also going to kill everyone you love every night for the next 3 nights until you agree. And if you don't agree by night number 3, I'm going to kill your husband. So we get to night number 3. Everyone realizes, not everyone. They're like, okay, well, we got to go kill, this guy. And so they try and go kill him. But Willem Dafoe's character, who's a professor who knows both about science and medicine, but also the occult and demons and possession and stuff like that, he knows that she's just going to have to give herself up. He's like, you're going to have to do it. She's like, yeah, I know. So go do whatever you guys got to do at his mansion or whatever. It's not going to work. She sacrifices herself in order to get rid of the plague and save her husband. And then Count Orlok sacrifices himself, to be with her. And he kills her and himself in a way. And then that's the movie. That's the whole movie.
That's it. It's a proposition. It's like the whole movie to me is just a proposition. It's like from the that's such a simple.
Now, who did it better, Count Orlok or the Joker in The Dark Knight? Oh, and every day you don't, people will die. I'm a man of my word.
That's pretty good.
Look at me. So who did it better?
Yeah, this big proposition. I'm haunted, and I'm haunted and possessed. And either I die or everyone I love dies. I'll sacrifice myself. Now, what's funny about this is, bitch, you were a little late.
Dude, like, she waits for the first 2 days. She's like, he's bluffing.
She let 2 little children get eaten alive.
Okay. Yeah, so this is, okay, I know we don't talk about things in chronological order anymore. So sorry, guys. We gave you the rundown. Okay, so on the first night, he has her best friend, which is like, so in the movie, Thomas, the husband, he has a best friend, and his best friend's wife becomes really close friends with Ellen, the main character. And he has her infected by the plague. He has her like eaten by rats, essentially.
Yeah,
and
he has in Count Orlok.
He has in Count Orlok, yes. The big bad.
The big bad.
And then on the second night, so she's like, okay, he got my best friend eaten by rats or whatever, but he's bluffing. Who gives a shit, right?
Ball up top.
Ball up top. Check ball, bitch. Is what she says. So then the next night, they have like this is the only, like, this is the part I was talking about where I actually felt an emotional connection to something that happened in the movie, because they the best friend and his wife have these 2 daughters. And they have all these really wonderful scenes of them two. Well, first of all, they're adorable. They're so cute. And then, of course, they're in like, the old timey dresses and everything. And they have this good scene where Ellen is like, spending time with them and, bonding with them. And then after the mom gets sick, they have this other scene that I really love. That was just, it wasn't even a scene. It was more of just a shot of the best friend and his two daughters, and he's just sitting there with them because they say that like they have to go in there and stay with them almost every night until they go to bed, because otherwise they'll say that there's monsters in the room, you know. And it's just like this thing, it's like this prevailing theme all the time. Like every night we stay with the kids until they fall asleep because there's, you know, they think that there's going to be monsters or there's a monster hunting them and they need to be protected or whatever. And then he's just staying with his daughters, whatever. And then the next night he is like literally sleeping with a gun, and Count Orlok, you know, curses him to not be able to wake up. He says like, don't wake no matter what, like, you know, whatever. In his mind, the mom hears screaming from the kid's room. She gets up, she, you know, tries to wake her husband up. He literally can't wake up. She runs into the room, and Count Orlok is just standing there, and he's just holding one of the kids up to like biting their neck, and he just like rips off their throat, and they're just like a limp body, and just throws them on the ground. And it was just like so fucking brutal and like terrifying. And it was just like, because they had like built up this thing about like they needed to be protected because there was a monster hunting them. It was like the one time that their parents weren't in the room with them, he comes and actually fucking kills them. You know, it was just like, I hated it, that, man. It was just like, it broke my heart. And then just to immediately go from that, cut to, and it's the funeral scene, and they're carrying out the two tiny coffins, the two tiny caskets for his two daughters. I mean, I was just like, this is the only part of the movie that like I was really emotionally connected to. And I was pissed about the main character. I was like, God damn it, you selfish bitch. You should have just given up. But no, like for her to then give up on night 3 to save her husband pissed me off, dude.
A little, yeah. I really was. I was like, hey, a little late. God damn.
I get a rule of 3 for horror, but
yeah, I don't know. That was, you're right. That was a really brutal scene. I loved it. I loved that it was just the silhouette, so it keeps like its subtlety. I feel like if you would have tried and showed like gore on the kid, you know, like it would have just not hit as much.
Yeah.
And would have felt very fake and forced. But this was like actually really well done. The brutality of it really like shines through its subtlety.
Yeah. Makes you put some fear in your heart for this big bad, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, oh shit. Which, you know, they were consistent throughout the movie with his brutality and his just evil, nasty spirit, you know?
Nasty guy.
Nasty vampire. He's a nasty vampire. He's no Dracula. I'll tell you that much, folks. He's no Dracula. I did like the brutality of the character. Okay, let's talk. Let's go ahead and bring up the design of Count Orlok.
Okay.
I'm gonna say. I just want to say who I thought he looked like, and
Okay.
you can and tell me if I'm wrong or whatever. Every time he was in a scene, I thought that he looked like Waluigi.
Okay. Yes. He does. Well, that's the thing is, I was just going to say he looked like any caricature of a burglar.
Yeah, that's accurate too.
The mustache was a bad decision. The mustache was objectively a bad decision.
Now,
he has
is he
Waluigi.
Is he speaking Italian? Is that what in my head, that's what he was speaking, but I don't know.
I thought it would be Latin if he's like a demon.
Yeah. He felt like his accent and stuff felt very Italian. And I was like, wait,
He had an accent I couldn't tell through the fucking breathing.
I was like, is Nosferatu Italian? It's actually
That's 75% of what he says.
It's only on the inhale. Show some respect. My cappuccino. I almost died. That's hard to do.
That was like how he was like the whole time.
Espresso martini. Ristretto. Really, really deep voice. You know what's crazy is I knew that Ralph Emerson was going to be in this movie because he's in like all of Robert Eggers' movies. The guy from Game of Thrones and The Witch. I'm just gonna start naming Robert Eggers movies. His voice is so unbelievably deep. And I remember it like the first time I ever saw him, and then I was in The Witch. Then I saw Game of Thrones, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's voice is so deep. And the vampire's voice made his seem normal. And I was like, okay, this is a really deep voice. I thought it was a really interesting take on the voice, but the design of the character, you're right. The mustache was a swing and a miss. It was really funny to me too at the end, because at the ending scene is him feasting on Ellen's heart. And he comes up,
motorboating her.
He comes up. Yeah, I mean, it's weirdly sexual. I mean, when they're in the trance and they're seeing horrific visions of Count Orlok, they're like,
yeah.
So,
they definitely made it seem, I mean, she said that he took her as her lover, or as his lover. So, it is like intentionally sexual, I think.
Yeah, so it's interesting that he's like eating her heart, and he like comes up as the sun starts to peek in through the window, and seeing the blood like drip off of his mustache was just funny. I'm sorry.
Which
it
is
was
like,
comedic.
it could have been the best shot in the movie of him like with his eyes rolled back in his head and his eyes start to bleed and his face starts to stretch.
Yeah, that was
and then
sick
the
as
blood
fuck.
comes out of his mouth. Like it looked really, really cool. But to see it dripping off of his mustache, I was like, get the fuck out of here, man.
Yeah.
You're telling me that you're a fucking 10 billion year old demon man who has fucking bones sticking out of your back and your skin is fucking decrepit and your fingers are long and misshapen and your fingernails are super long and your fucking teeth are filed down and this is what you look, but you have a mustache. You have a handlebar mustache. Like, what the fuck is this, man?
Yeah, it was very
You
funny.
look stupid. You look silly. I was like, dude, you like, what's crazy about you? What's crazy about this design is when you're wearing a giant fucking burqa coat or whatever with the giant fucking collar and a tall ass bowler hat, the mustache is the dumbest fucking thing on you. Like, you look like the dude from fucking Meet the Robinsons. You know what I'm talking about? Oh my gosh, bro. I'm gonna show you this right now.
Mrs. Robinson. I can see that. Yeah, that's kind of close to Waluigi. Yeah, we're definitely in the same. Yeah.
Like, come on, man.
Yeah, I see that for sure.
You're the fucking villain from Meet the Robinsons. and Waluigi and like I said, any caricature like this,
Any
it was just
caricature of Robert
it was just a
is good
fucking
too, yeah.
terrible idea.
Like
it was
the
just,
striped. Yeah.
it's awful, man. You look like I'm waiting for you to go say that.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. Swing and a miss on the design. I do appreciate the silhouette of the character for sure.
Yeah.
They look very, very unrealistically tall and menacing. And I love the coat and stuff. The way that stuff looks is super, super cool. But when he is clearly seen, and it's not super often in the movie, to be fair, so they do well of shrouding him. But like, when he is to be seen in full light, it is really goofy, and it's just very, very comedic to me. And yeah, I was thinking Waluigi the whole time. I was waiting for him to say it was spicy meatball at some point.
Or him to go, wah. This guy doesn't even play Nintendo. He nailed that.
But yeah, so I didn't like the design. I think it's good that they had the voice in an interesting place. That
The breathing I didn't like, but the voice I thought was fine.
Yeah, I could see why the breathing would get annoying. I thought it was an interesting choice because I was like, okay, he's kind of like linked to his actual earthly dead body. And so he's like it's like very zombie, but also vampire-esque. It's very interesting, this take on what if you were to somehow outlive your physical body, and what would that be like? And for it to be this horrifically just shriveled lung, desperate attempt to get air every time you breathe in. I thought it was really interesting. I totally understand it being like so annoying.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was an interesting choice. I thought it was a different take that I appreciated for sure. Because it also sounded very organic. It's not like they just copy and pasted the same inhale. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was kind of cool. I love the fingers too. Not only them themselves, but like you said, the shadow casting of the hand was a very recurring thing, and I thought it was so cool, especially that one specific one where it goes out and starts flying over the town, to the house,
which I think is an iconic
Super
shot
cool.
from the original Nosferatu, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's like a one of the like a major callback to one of the things that was like really famous from that movie. Because I know that I've seen that type of a shot before.
Yeah.
And I think that
was cool.
is what it's from. So
cool.
They did that really well. Like when he goes and he opens the door with his shadow, like the shadow aspect of him is like, because that's what, like, it's one of the themes of the movie. They say like you're under his shadow. Once you're under his shadow, he can have control over you. He can have control over your thoughts and your feelings and your dreams and your emotions. Like he's so manipulative, like from as a force. And they even like compare him to being possessed, like you're possessed by a demon, like a demon has infiltrated your mind. Like that's how they describe it. And I really liked that aspect of it because it makes it so much more terrifying of a concept of like trying to defeat this guy who's this powerful. And like to show like literally the whole town is under his shades. Like the second he gets here, it's over for you guys. Like he casts a shadow over the entire town. He literally becomes a plague of the society that he is in. And so I love that. And then to show like he's literally physically a shadow that exists everywhere you are, like to show that in those ways when he does the shadow casting. And then like in the opening sequence where they have her talking to him and it's like the window is open. It's like this massive bay window that's open and there's curtains that are flying back and forth. And when the curtain flies into the scene, you can see the shadow of him behind the curtain, but when it goes away, he's not standing there. And it was really, really well done. I was like, this is a cool aspect and a cool like feature of this character as this vampiric, like what are his powers, what are his abilities, and this kind of like aspect of him where it's like he is everywhere was I thought really good. Now there's something that I wanted to bring up that I didn't like. Shocker, I know. When we talk about the pacing of this movie, when we talk about the structure of this movie, I don't remember how long this movie is. I'm assuming it's a little over 2 hours.
I think so, yeah.
Here's how it could have been an hour 30. I did not need 25 scenes of the main woman, Ellen, just having nightmares and freaking out. Her just going,
Yeah.
20 times we look at this.
He's coming.
He's coming. It's bad.
He's gonna come all over this town.
He's coming over here. He's coming over there. Come everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah, I agree.
So many scenes.
Like I said, this movie has a lot of repeat offenses, and this is one of them. It's just like, we get it. She's under a trance. Yeah, she's under his trance, and she does the same thing every time. She shakes, and I don't know. It was really overdone, and I thought too, like some of the pacing, even in a singular scene, like in a smaller sense, was a lot of just really, really slow pans from left to right and back and forth, and it was driving me a little crazy around midway through the movie where I was like, all right, like, cause it almost was the same thing as The Swell, because until the scene where Friedrich's wife is in the darkness and she senses something evil on the stairs, and then it pans back to the left, and then you get a like sort of half jump scare with, every time I'm saying Ellen, I want to say Lily Rose Depp, but she, reveals herself through candlelight behind her, and it's not even as music sting or anything, so it's not like a cheap jump scare, but it was interesting visually, and I was like, okay, finally a reason for the pan, like from left to right, whereas in the other parts of the movie it didn't feel like it led up to anything.
Yeah, and at least that one was like, she was completely in the dark.
Yeah.
And then she appears in the light. Actually felt, and even like them using the aspect of her being possessed by this guy, that she becomes a dark presence in other people's life, like I liked that aspect too. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, and again, it slowed the movie down to the point of me being able to fall asleep and feeling like I could fall asleep. Not, like that's the other thing, is that I wasn't just falling asleep because I wasn't capable of staying awake. It was also like, I was like, I'm really tired and I feel like I could probably go to sleep for the next 5 minutes and I won't miss a thing that actually matters or is important. And I that genuinely happens so many, because there's so many repetition of these things, like the things that we have these complaints about. It just happens so many times that it's just like, okay, this is not important anymore. I don't care about this. Like, you could have spent this time building something up to make, like, even if I just had a better explanation of as to why she was willing to sell her fucking self to this vampire when she was a teenager, like what was so awful about her life that she felt the need to do this, like, you know what I'm saying? I would have been more interested in that if they had done the fucking smile plot and like gone back and, you know, researched why she did this. Like I would have been better. That would have been better than just showing her, you know, convulsing over and over again. And so, yeah, but to get to this other character that I said brought the most excitement to the movie, this what I want to call him is this Wormtail guy. I know you don't know who that is, but Wormtail is a character in Harry Potter who is like the most devoted to Voldemort, and he is the one who kills Harry's parent, like, or he's the one who sells Harry's parents out. Like he tells Voldemort where they are. And he's like this sniveling little fucking pesky guy who's like a little rat. And he literally transmogrifies himself into a rat for like 10 years. Anyways, this character reminds me of Wormtail a lot. So my Harry Potter fans out there will get it. But he's the one who's like dedicated his life to Count Orlok. Like he has, you know, sold every meaning of his life to this guy. He's like, I am your servant. I am your vessel. I am your everything, right?
Yes, Daddy.
Yes, Daddy. Yes, please. Oh my gosh, shadow me, shadow me, Daddy. He's like, he's a freak. He's a fucking psycho freak. And he is the one who owns the like real estate agency that Thomas works at. That he's like, you got to go to Count Orlok. You got to go to his castle and, you know, fucking BFE, and you got to, you know, sell him this other house, whatever. And then we get to see him rolling around on the ground, butt naked, in the middle of a like pentagram
Summoning circle
a summoning circle from Phasmophobia. Wild Dream Stream.
Man, my Wednesday stream heads, where y'all at?
Phasmophobia every Wednesday. Wild Dream Stream, except today because it's Christmas. Anyways, so he like it's like rolling around the ground naked, like writing stuff to him in his blood, just dipping a well ink pen into his fucking arm and writing in blood and like all these candles around him, and like he's just like so crazy. It's like, wow, this guy like really brings the fucking energy to this movie. And when he gets arrested, man, and they're like, well, he puts him in a jail cell in a hospital, and the doctor's like, hey man, you can't be locking people up anymore. This is not. He's like,
that was the old us, man.
Like, that's the old. He's like, this is not a prison anymore.
It's a freaking.
And he's like, well, this guy was caught running around naked, killing sheeps and eating them raw. And he was like, all right, well, let's go talk to him. I was like, and so like this scene of him where he's like, they walk into the jail cell. He has all these rats that have been killed and like flayed and like laid out on the ground with the blood everywhere. And he's like, life and blood, the sacrifices to him, and you know, whatever. And he's holding this bird, and he keeps like threatening to bite the bird's head off until he finally does. He just bites the bird's head off and chews it. It was so disgusting and so like, what the fuck am I looking at? Like, what am I watching? This guy was so incredible. He was so incredible. Like this whole monologue that he has, biting the bird's head off, the blood dripping down his face, and like seeing him with his face twisted in the light, like that's like from half moonlight, half firelight, and him just like, and it was just so visually interesting, so audibly interesting, so like the acting was just so incredible. I just loved it. And then to go to the other scene of him in the jail cell where he is laying down on his side. They have strapped him to a chair at this point because they're like, this guy's fucking insane. And he's like strapped to a chair and he's on the ground. Somebody goes to go help him and he just bites the dude in the fucking neck and rips it off. And then like, you know, eventually escapes. He is just such a fucking dynamic character, bro. Every scene that he was in, and like even the setting where they show his jail cell, and it's just like fucking, he has shit written all over the walls. He has some of it in blood. He's like charred the fucking walls to write like, you know, like demon scripture and shit like that. It was just so fucking insane. I loved it. I mean, his character was so important to the story too. Like, man, I would have watched a movie about this guy.
I agree. I loved he did have the best energy in the whole movie, and I think that it's really, really funny, and I think intentionally funny and dismissive to have his character built up throughout the whole movie like this, where it's just like when he's on screen, you know some shit's about to go down. This guy's fucking crazy. This guy's a nut. He's setting everything up. He's putting shit into place. He's an absolute fucking nightmare. And then the moment you finally see him interact with Count Orlok is like, get off me, you fucking dog. Like
which is like Wormtail in Harry Potter too, because Voldemort is the same way to Wormtail all the time.
Yeah, it's just so great. I just love it. It's like you had this, he gets put in his place and you see him for the little fucking rat that he is. And it's like all that intimidation and fear and stuff kind of goes away a little bit. And it's like, oh yeah, this is the guy who's actually holding this puppet, you know? So it's like, it was really funny to me just to see him actually call him a dog and like kind of kick him off and like,
he's like so pathetic. But it's like, it kind of shows too, like how like powerful this guy is, Count Orlok is, because he's like infected this dude's brain to just be a fucking mindless, like obsessive servant.
Yeah.
So it's like, even like to see that and to see the fact that the main character, the girl, has some power over Orlok because she has to willingly, give this stuff up. It's like, look what he's able to do with everyone else. Look at like what he inflicts on everyone else, and he wants the same thing from you, but you have to give it to him willingly. So that's like makes him weak. It's like the one thing. It's like, okay, the one thing I want is for you, is you, but you're the only thing that I can't just force my way into it. You have to be willing. And it just like shows this like weakness in him that forces him to have to go to drastic measures and all this shit and cause a plague on a city and, inflict his full power over this whole area and all these people because of this one thing that he can't have,
Yeah.
And so I just love that, like this character who's so obsessive adds that dynamic, to him and this girl even more so because he's such an obsessive little fucking pig,
Yeah.
And then for him to die in the way that he does, where he like takes his place because Orlok knows that they're going to come to hunt him down. And so he just puts, he puts this Wormtail in his own right in his casket. So then when the three characters go hunt down Count Orlok, they open his casket and it's him. It's the little rat, and they stab him in the heart and fucking put a hammer in it. And he even says, he's like, no, I was supposed to be the Prince of Rats. Like he literally says, I was supposed to be the Prince of Rats, and I was supposed to inherit all of this. And this is bullshit, and this shouldn't have happened. Whatever. It's just like, yeah, man, like you fucking, that's what you get for being on the side of the bad guy.
Yeah, you get got. I think I did want to mention too, like when I was talking about how I just didn't appreciate the structure of this movie. One of my biggest issues with the structure of the movie was, I've been thinking about this because we're talking about this guy's scenes. I didn't like this cutting back and forth between A plot and B plot. It didn't feel like on an actual sequential, more like standard narrative pathway that I think would have serviced the movie. I think it felt like an episode of a TV show, and like it felt so TV show to me. I did not like the structure of this movie. It was, you talked about your swelling, the music of swelling and crescendoing and then getting big, and then it would just cut to the B plot. And then they'd be like, all right, we got to figure out how to kill this Nosferatu monster. Wait a minute. I found some original occult text that might help us out. Time to get to work. Cut to the A plot. He's coming. I can see him. Oh no. Cut to the B plot. All right, here's the plan. Like it just felt so TV show to me,
right?
And in a bad way. And I was like, wait, I don't get episode 2 of this. So why is this structured this way? It's very odd to me, and I did not like it. It was just a bunch of cutting back and forth to this location. Okay, now we're back to this location and their plot line. Okay, now we're back to the original location and their plot line. Now we're back to the other location and their plot line. It just felt like this movie would have been a lot better serviced to have a little bit more of a linear structure and just getting from point A to point B instead of jumping back and forth and then eventually ending all together at a point C. It just felt very jagged to me, and I did not like it. And that was my biggest gripe with the structure of the movie. I just, especially if you don't care about one of those plots even more.
Right.
Because then it's just like, oh my God, we're going to have to keep returning to this, and I don't care about this. What if this was just a pit stop? Like, why can't this just be a pit stop and then be over with? It also would have shortened the movie, too. Like, yeah. I don't know. I just, whatever. I think, too, you know what was funny to me, and I could be wrong here. I'll have to rewatch it. I could have sworn that Willem Dafoe's character's introduction for the first, 4 to 5 lines is the only time he even cared about the accent. I could have sworn the first 4 to 5 lines he was like, "Who goes there? I'm Willem Dafoe, and my character has an accent." But then for the rest of the movie, I'm kind of just talking like this.
Yeah, no, he definitely just goes back to it until he does his like final monologue while he's setting the mansion on fire.
Yeah,
you know, then
cool
all,
shot.
Then all of a sudden he goes back into his lighthouse monologue and whatever shit. And I was just like, yeah, this is why you go get Willem Dafoe for this scene. You know,
what a perfect casting for a mad scientist, rather, or mad.
I know, right?
Or whatever.
Second mad scientist. We've seen him play this year,
right?
So,
right.
But yeah, we love Willem Dafoe over here at Wild Dream. Y'all know that, but I thought he did great in this movie, and his character was important. But his character was also like what I liked about it was his character wasn't the one who goes, "Well, this is blah, blah, blah." And people go, "What the hell is that?" He's like, "Ugh." And, we never got like a, in English, please scene with him. Like everyone knew what he was talking about. They were just like, "You're fucking crazy. That's not real." Whatever. Until eventually they're like, "Okay, maybe it's real a little bit." And he's like, "Yeah, no, it's real." So I like that they didn't do that with his character. And I like that they didn't make him explain everything. Like at no point did he go, "Nosferatu," and they go, "What the hell is Nosferatu?" And he's like, "Oh, a Nosferatu is like a demon thing." It's whatever. They didn't do that. But
a Nosferatu, it's like a guy who can be in sunlight and you can stab him through the heart with a stake. And he's a little afraid of garlic, but I'm not going to say what it's like.
Imagine you have sharp fangs, and imagine
he sucks your blood.
You suck blood. Imagine that. Does that sound very familiar?
Sounds like a Nosferatu. I did really like the font choices, which is always consistent with Robert Eggers. Love the font choices because I like the title card font, but I also like the choice to go with this old, like you just found a 1600s diary font for all of the subtitles in the movie. I thought it was great. So love the font a lot. Also, when I'm talking about the horror that actually worked for me, the fucking scene where the guy on the ship has to go find his body to kill him because everyone on the ship is dying, like the ship that's actually transporting the body from his lair or whatever to Germany is, or is he in Germany? Is this all in Germany? I don't know. I
couldn't really tell. I couldn't tell where he had to travel to via boat to get to.
Yeah. Geography is one of my worst subjects, folks. So I'm just going to point that out. But anyways, them transporting his body, everyone on the ship starts to die because this guy really is just a plague. So everyone's dying and they're like, "Look, man, I think that cargo that we were told to take is fucking cursed and I think it's time to kill him." So the guy has to go into the bottom of the ship and go approach this scary ass coffin to open it up and obviously kill this fucking body. Well, on his way there, it creates this really great tension, and there's the seas are fucking raging, and the thunder and the lightning. It's all happening.
And there's moonlight with firelight in the forefront. Yeah.
So it's all happening, and it's all intense, and it's scary. But when he hops into underneath this. The floorboards to go approach this coffin, that gets really muffled, and it's just you and this thing that is causing all of this terror, and it is legitimately scary. I'm like getting afraid for this guy, and as he's walking down towards the coffin on the right side of the frame, you can see Count Orlok's back move a little bit.
Yeah, you can like see his lungs inflating.
Yeah, because
and it's like he looks like he's part of the wall at first.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's kind of like you see this like body horror.
Yeah, it looks like he's part of the setting, kind of like that. You've talked about that jump scare or not jump scare, but that scene of horror that you appreciated from that movie Eli, where she looked like a piece of scenery until you realize that she's not. And I think that this is kind of similar, where when his back starts to roll around and you see his body move. One, they don't hold on it. It's well paced because it's as the guy is walking. But when you realize it, you're like, "Oh fuck,
he's not in the coffin."
He's not in the coffin. And then they do the jump scare when he eventually opens the coffin and sees, "Oh, that's not thing." And then they pan or tilt back up, and then bam, immediate jump scare that he goes feasting.
Wah!
He goes, "Wah!"
And he throws a turtle shell at him. I was like, "What the hell is this?"
But yeah, so it was really good horror. I was just like, this is fantastic horror, man. I loved it. That shit was dope.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were a lot of, again, I'm willing to give this one another shot because I think that us being tired was going to affect our, enjoyment of the movie in general. And the fact that I'm willing to go back to it, it's got to say something. I do think that, the plot in general is just like, there's not enough for me to connect with the movie that makes me care that much.
Yeah.
I think that that's hard to, when you're talking about a movie that's all about a villain and defeating the villain. I'm like, with the stakes, I don't really care about though. So maybe I'm just a piece of shit. Who knows?
Yeah, same here. I mean, maybe that's like, because that's why I'm saying, like, I want to hear other perspectives. Like, is there something to this that I just can't connect to, even just biologically? You know what I'm saying? Because especially because the big mantra of this movie is this main character, this woman who is being entranced but also punished, and like there's probably something there that I just can't connect with that someone else could. That maybe I would love to hear a woman's perspective on this movie for sure.
Because I even thought that childhood abuse was a thing about this movie, like the way that she was like, yeah, I mean, when I was a child, he took me and I love my husband now, but this person is still infecting me, my mind. Like, yeah, I mean, I thought that was a motif for sure. Not enough of a motif, I guess. It was a very interesting movie stylistically. I will say I hated the title cards. Shocker. Who's surprised? Germany. Didn't need to know that. No one speaks German the entire movie. Who gives a shit?
It is weird that they did.
Fuck what country they're in.
Everyone just speaks English.
Everyone speaks English, but they're in Germany. Sure. They literally show us a map later. That's a good way to tell us where we're at without having to put it on the fucking screen.
True.
Everyone's worried about the plague. Do I need to know what fucking year it is? No. Also, they go and they zoom in on the fucking plaque next to the name of the company that the main character works for. And then they have a title card telling us what the plaque says.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to give a shit? What's the significance of the name of the company? Where does that come up again? Daniel, go. Where does it matter?
I don't know.
Okay, it matters enough to put it on fucking screen.
But
plain text.
Here's my thought. I think it's all studio. I can almost guarantee it. And that's why I'm saying, like, this movie felt... It's funny that he made The Northman, and that was supposed to be his big studio movie. He even said himself, like, yeah, this is my, like, big studio movie. This one felt more studio heavy than that one to me. Like,
yeah, the studio who said we're releasing this on Christmas only. Dumbasses.
Dumbasses.
Anyways,
so yeah, very strange.
Hated the title cards.
Some of the choices, yeah, the title cards were unnecessary. Great font though. Great font.
Good font. I'll give him that. I think the Nosferatu font, like that title, looked great.
Badass
too. But yeah, my least favorite part of this movie was the crescendos. They drove me insane. I was like, by the third one, I was like, stop. Like, this is a once a movie type of thing, if that. Mm-hmm. Twice if the movie's 3 hours long. You know what I mean? 10, 15, 20 times, 4 times in one scene. Enough. Quit it. My favorite part of this movie was the Wormtail character. Like I said, he brought the most excitement to the movie. Every time he was on screen, it was dynamic, and the actor who played him did a really, really good job.
Yeah, I think my least favorite part of this movie is similar to yours, because it is just the way it was structured, and part of that structure and the headache of it is the amount of crescendos. And this movie just repeats stuff that doesn't work a lot. So it sucks, because sometimes you'd be like, oh, I didn't care for that. At least I don't have to deal with that again. This movie, it's not that way. If you don't like people waking up all flustered and out of breath over and over and over and over and over, then you're going to hate that part of this movie. If you don't like the crescendos leading to nothing and being just spammed over and over, you're not going to like that part of this movie for the entirety of the movie. There is no like, well, it's just that one scene. Yeah. So that's what really, really sucks. And it is a structure problem. And I just don't like the structure of this movie. And my favorite part of the movie, I loved that shot of at the very end of his eyes and mouth and stuff bleeding out. It was so fucking gnarly, man. Yeah. Really, really, really cool. Love the sound design a lot too, especially when he's feasting. Yeah. And it wasn't that small needle piercing kind of sound that you get with vampire movies of their teeth sinking in. It was
It was
it was a like just
it was a Cronenberg.
Yeah, it's very
sound.
like viscous liquid sound. So it really does sound.
You know what
like
it reminded me of?
feasting
It
on
reminded me
blood.
of the Witch.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the witch and the sounds of her, grinding the baby up and slathering it all over her body and stuff. Like, it was gnarly, dude.
Yeah.
Just to give a little spoiler alert for Wild Dream, I anticipate us doing our revisit episode that we've been talking about forever pretty early in the new year as maybe a New Year's episode. So this one will probably be in that already because I do want to give this movie another shot when I'm more rested and maybe I'm more in the mood to watch a movie and I'm not thinking about the fact that it's Christmas and I'm up late and my wife isn't here and she would love this movie, blah, 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 like all that stuff. If I was like, I think your mood affects how you feel about a movie a lot. If you go into a movie in a good mood, you're going to really love the movie a lot more. So I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10, but I am going to revisit it.
Yeah, I'm almost the exact same. I was thinking 5.5 out of 10. Maybe even a 6. Maybe even a 6.
It's definitely closer to being north of 5 than south of it for sure.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking 6 too. I was like, I don't think I can go that high because I was literally falling asleep during the movie. But again, I need to revisit it.
For sure. We'll have to revisit this one. But you guys can tell us what you think. What score would you give it?
And unfortunately, we're not going to have a part 2 for you guys today, partially because this movie literally just came out today. It came out a couple hours ago. And you know us, we give our freshest takes. Well, that's why we say freshest takes, because we always do our reviews right after leaving the theater. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing even, like the Reddit discussion thread isn't even live yet. There is some trivia that is out there. Feel free to go look it up. Let us know if we were wrong about everything and we're just idiots. I think that the other thing about the trivia that I'm not excited about is it's just like in the original Nosferatu, this happened. And in this one, it's a reference to this. I'm like, I don't care.
This is Robert Eggers' third collaboration with Ralph Emerson. Yeah, stuff like that.
So yeah, sorry, but you know what? We wish you all a happy holiday. Thank you guys for listening. You guys can get involved in the conversation. Let us know what you thought of this movie. If you went to go see it, let us know what you thought of this episode. We are at Wild Dream Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Not as much Blue Sky, not until you guys come follow us. If we get some followers on there, we'll start posting there.
I'll start shit posting.
And we are also streaming all the time. Come see us on stream. We are at Wild Dream Stream on Twitch and YouTube. We are having a lot of fun with that. We're doing a lot of cool stuff. We're doing a lot of fun stuff. We're doing horror-based stuff a lot. So
yeah, Wednesdays and Sundays. If you like spooky, come hang out.
Always open AMA while we're streaming too. So, we do a lot of chat that has nothing to do with the game that we're playing. So if you're like, well, I don't like, Phasmophobia video games, like we're never talking about the game, especially when people are in there chatting with us. So come say hi. But until then, we love you. We kiss you. Good night.